Everyone mocked Sarah for adopting a black child in their conservative town. Years later, they couldn't believe what he became. What happened to Michael after 25 years? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Sarah's heart raced as she stepped into the bustling community center. The adoption fair was in full swing, with eager couples milling about and children's laughter filling the air. She hadn't planned on coming today, but something had drawn her here, a feeling she couldn't quite explain. As she wandered through the room, Sarah's eyes were drawn to a small crib in the corner. There, nestled among soft blankets, lay a beautiful black infant boy. His big brown eyes met hers, and in that moment, Sarah felt her world shift. "This is Michael," a social worker said softly, noticing Sarah's interest. "He's been with us for a few months now." Sarah reached out, and Michael's tiny hand wrapped around her finger. Tears welled up in her eyes as a wave of love washed over her. "Can I hold him?" she asked, her voice trembling. As she cradled Michael in her arms, Sarah knew without a doubt that this was meant to be. The pain of losing her husband still lingered, but holding this precious child filled her heart with hope and purpose. "I want to adopt him," Sarah declared, her voice steady and sure. The social worker's eyebrows raised in surprise. "Are you certain? This is a big decision, and there might be challenges in your community." Sarah understood the unspoken concern. She lived in a small, conservative town where interracial adoption was practically unheard of. But as she looked down at Michael's innocent face, she knew she would face any obstacle for him. "I'm sure," Sarah replied, her voice filled with determination. "This little boy needs a home, and I have so much love to give." As she filled out the initial paperwork, Sarah's mind raced with thoughts of the life she and Michael would build together. She knew there would be difficult days ahead, but the joy in her heart overshadowed any fear. "Welcome to the family, Michael," Sarah whispered, planting a gentle kiss on his forehead. "We're going to be just fine." Sarah's heart swelled with joy as she carried little Michael through the front door of her cozy home. "Welcome home, sweetheart," she cooed, nuzzling his soft cheek. The baby gurgled happily, his tiny fingers grasping at her shirt. The peace was short-lived. Within hours, Sarah's phone began ringing off the hook. Her sister's voice crackled through the receiver, filled with concern and confusion. "Sarah, what were you thinking? This town isn't ready for this kind of thing," her sister sputtered. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. "I was thinking about love, about giving a child a home. That's all that matters." As days passed, the whispers grew louder. Neighbors who once greeted her warmly now averted their eyes. At the grocery store, Sarah overheard hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when she approached. "Did you hear? Sarah adopted one of them," an elderly woman muttered to her friend. Sarah's cheeks burned, but she held her head high. She looked down at Michael, sleeping peacefully in his carrier, and felt a surge of protective love. That evening, a knock at the door startled her. Sarah opened it to find Mrs. Johnson, the leader of her church group, standing there with a pinched expression. "Sarah, dear," Mrs. Johnson began, her voice sickly sweet. "We're just concerned about, well, you know. Have you really thought this through?" Sarah's grip tightened on the doorknob. "Mrs. Johnson, I appreciate your concern, but Michael is my son now, and that's not going to change. Love doesn't see color." As she closed the door, Sarah leaned against it, tears pricking her eyes. But a soft cry from the nursery snapped her out of it. Michael needed her. In the quiet of the nursery, Sarah rocked Michael gently. "It's just you and me, little one," she whispered. "We'll show them all what family really means." The days that followed were a whirlwind of diaper changes, late-night feedings, and tender moments. Sarah marveled at how quickly she adapted to motherhood, her love for Michael growing stronger with each passing day. As Michael grew into a toddler, Sarah knew it was time to enroll him in daycare. She wanted him to socialize with other children and develop important skills. With a mix of excitement and apprehension, she walked into Sunshine Tots daycare holding Michael's hand. The receptionist's smile faltered when she saw them. "Oh, I'm not sure we have any openings," she said, avoiding eye contact. Sarah stood her ground. "I called last week and was told there were spots available." Reluctantly, the receptionist handed over the enrollment forms. As Sarah filled them out, she noticed other parents staring and whispering. One mother pulled her child closer as Michael toddled by. "Mommy, why is that boy's skin dark?" a little girl asked loudly. Sarah's heart sank, but she plastered on a smile. "Everyone's skin is different, sweetie. Isn't that wonderful?" The girl's mother quickly ushered her away, shooting Sarah a disapproving look. Over the next few weeks, Sarah noticed Michael was often playing alone. During pickup one day, she overheard two mothers talking. "I just don't want my Tommy getting any ideas," one said, glancing at Michael. Sarah's blood boiled. She marched up to the daycare director's office, determination in her eyes. "Mrs. Thompson, we need to talk about inclusion and diversity in this daycare," Sarah said firmly. The director looked uncomfortable. "Sarah, we treat all children equally here." "But do you actively promote understanding and acceptance?" Sarah pressed. "These children are the future. They need to learn that differences are beautiful." Seeing the director's hesitation, Sarah proposed an idea. "What if we organized a cultural day, where kids can learn about different traditions and cultures?" Mrs. Thompson considered it. That could be interesting. Encouraged, Sarah didn't stop there. She volunteered to read diverse books during story time, brought in multicultural snacks, and organized playdates with families from different backgrounds. Slowly but surely, Sarah noticed a change. The other children started including Michael more. Some parents even approached her, curious about her experiences. One evening, as Sarah tucked Michael into bed, he said, "Mommy, I made a new friend today." Tears of joy welled up in Sarah's eyes. She hugged him tightly, knowing that her efforts were making a difference, not just for Michael, but for the whole community. As Michael grew from a toddler into a young child, Sarah marveled at his insatiable curiosity. She filled their modest home with books, puzzles, and educational toys, eager to nurture his growing mind. Every evening after dinner, Sarah and Michael would snuggle up on their worn but cozy couch for story time. Sarah's melodic voice brought tales of faraway lands and brave heroes to life. Michael's eyes would grow wide with wonder, his imagination soaring. "Mommy, can we read the robot book again?" Michael asked one night, his small hands clutching a colorful picture book about futuristic machines. Sarah smiled warmly. "Of course, sweetheart, you really love that one, don't you?" As they flipped through the pages, Michael pointed excitedly at each illustration. "Look, Mommy, that robot can fly. Can I build one like that someday?" Sarah hugged him close. "You can do anything you set your mind to, Michael. If you want to build flying robots, I believe you will." During the day, their living room often transformed into a makeshift laboratory. Sarah would watch in awe as Michael constructed elaborate towers from building blocks or figured out how to make his toy cars go faster. One afternoon, Sarah brought home a simple coding game designed for children. Michael's eyes lit up as she explained how it worked. Within hours, he had completed all the beginner levels. "This is so cool, Mommy," Michael exclaimed, his fingers flying over the tablet screen. "It's like telling the computer what to do, and it listens." Sarah's heart swelled with pride. "That's right, sweetie. You're learning to speak the language of computers." As bedtime approached, Sarah gently pried the tablet from Michael's reluctant hands. "Time for bed, my little genius," she said softly. Michael yawned, suddenly realizing how tired he was. "Can we play more tomorrow?" "Of course," Sarah promised, tucking him in. "Sweet dreams, Michael. I love you to the moon and back." "Love you more, Mommy," Michael mumbled, already drifting off to sleep. Sarah stood in the doorway, watching her son's peaceful face. She felt a deep sense of joy and purpose, knowing she was helping to shape this bright, curious mind. Despite the challenges they faced, moments like these made everything worthwhile. Sarah's heart raced as she entered the town hall. The room was packed and she could feel the weight of disapproving stares. She clutched her purse tightly, drawing strength from the photo of Michael tucked inside. Mayor Thompson called the meeting to order. "We're here to discuss the unusual adoption in our community," he said, his eyes flicking to Sarah. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "It ain't right," a gruff voice called out. "This town has ways, and she's going against them." Sarah flinched but held her head high. She knew this was her chance to speak up, not just for herself and Michael, but for love itself. When it was her turn to speak, Sarah approached the podium. Her legs felt like jelly, but her voice rang out clear and strong. "I know many of you don't understand my decision," she began. "But love doesn't see color. It doesn't care about what others think. Love is pure, and it's powerful." She paused, looking around the room. Some faces remained hard, but others softened. "When I first saw Michael, I knew he was meant to be my son. His smile lit up my world. His laughter filled the hole in my heart." Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. "Isn't that what family is all about? Love, acceptance, and joy?" A few people nodded, encouraging her to continue. "We talk about community values," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. "Well, I believe the greatest value is love. Love for our neighbors, love for those who are different from us. If we can open our hearts, we can make this town a better place for all our children." Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes, but she stood tall. "Michael is a blessing. He's smart, kind, and full of wonder. He makes me a better person every day. And I truly believe he can make our community better too if we give him the chance." As Sarah finished speaking, a hush fell over the room. Then, from the back, a slow clap started. It spread, growing louder. Not everyone joined in, but enough did to fill Sarah with hope. She returned to her seat trembling but proud. She had spoken her truth, and maybe, just maybe, she had planted the first seeds of change in their little town. As the first day of kindergarten arrived, Sarah knelt down to straighten Michael's little blue backpack. Her heart swelled with pride and worry all at once. "Remember, sweetie," she said, cupping his face in her hands, "you're smart, you're kind, and you're loved." Michael nodded, his big brown eyes wide with excitement. "I know, Mama," he replied, giving her a gap-toothed grin. The classroom was a whirlwind of colors and noise. Michael's teacher, Ms. Johnson, welcomed them warmly. But as Sarah turned to leave, she noticed a few parents whispering and staring. She squared her shoulders and kissed Michael's forehead before heading out. In the following weeks, Michael thrived academically. His natural curiosity blossomed in the classroom, and he eagerly soaked up new information like a sponge. Ms. Johnson often praised his quick mind and kind heart. But school wasn't all smooth sailing. One day, Sarah received a call from the principal. Michael had come home with scraped knees before, but this time was different. A group of boys had pushed him down, calling him names that made Sarah's blood boil. That night, as she tucked Michael into bed, Sarah's heart ached. "Baby, do you want to talk about what happened today?" she asked gently. Michael's lower lip trembled. "Why don't they like me, Mama? Is it 'cause I'm different?" Sarah gathered him into her arms, blinking back tears. "Oh, sweetheart. You're not different. You're special. And sometimes people are scared of special because they don't understand it." She spent the next day at the school, meeting with the principal and Michael's teacher. They developed a plan to address the bullying and promote inclusivity in the classroom. "Michael is a bright light in our school," Ms. Johnson said. "We need to nurture that, not let others dim it." At home, Sarah worked on building Michael's confidence. They practiced positive affirmations in the mirror each morning. "I am smart," Michael would say, his voice growing stronger each day. "I am kind. I am worthy of love and respect." Slowly but surely, things began to improve. Michael made a few close friends who didn't care about the color of his skin. He continued to excel in his studies, especially in math and science. As the seasons changed, Sarah and Michael became more involved in their community. They started attending local events, determined to show the town the strength of their bond and the beauty of their love. One crisp autumn Saturday, they volunteered at the annual Fall Festival. Sarah manned the face-painting booth, her gentle touch and warm smile putting even the shyest children at ease. Michael, now in first grade, helped at the pumpkin patch, his enthusiasm infectious as he helped younger kids pick out the perfect gourd. At first, some people kept their distance, eyeing the pair with suspicion. But as the day wore on, Sarah's kindness and Michael's infectious laughter began to soften even the hardest hearts. Mrs. Thompson, who had once been one of their harshest critics, approached their booth hesitantly. "My granddaughter would like her face painted," she said, her voice tight. Sarah smiled warmly. "Of course, what would you like, sweetheart?" As Sarah painted a delicate butterfly on the little girl's cheek, Mrs. Thompson watched in silence. When it was done, she looked at Sarah with new eyes. "You have quite a talent," she admitted softly. Michael's natural charm worked its magic too. He befriended Tommy, a boy who had once teased him at school. Together, they built a towering display of pumpkins, giggling as they worked. Tommy's father watched from afar, his brow furrowed. But when Michael helped Tommy up after a stumble, the man's expression softened. As winter approached, Sarah and Michael joined the town's canned food drive. They went door to door, collecting donations for the local food bank. Many were surprised to see them, but Michael's polite requests and Sarah's warm explanations of the cause often resulted in generous contributions. At the church potluck, Sarah's homemade apple pie became the talk of the event. As people gathered around to taste it, conversation started. Slowly, barriers began to crumble. "You know," old Mr. Jenkins said between bites, "this pie reminds me of my mother's. She always said love was the secret ingredient." Sarah smiled, her eyes misty. "That's exactly what I tell Michael when we bake together." With each event, each interaction, Sarah and Michael chipped away at the prejudice surrounding them. It wasn't always easy, and there were still those who clung to their biases. But slowly, surely, hearts began to change. Sarah's alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., and she groaned as she reached to silence it. She glanced at Michael's room across the hall, grateful he was still asleep. With a sigh, she dragged herself out of bed and started her day. At work, Sarah's desk was piled high with unfinished reports. She had been falling behind lately, struggling to balance her job with Michael's needs. As she settled in, her boss, Mr. Harrington, approached with a stern look. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, his voice gruff. "Your performance has been slipping. I understand you have responsibilities at home, but this company needs your full attention." Sarah's heart sank. She knew she had been struggling, but hearing it from Mr. Harrington made it real. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll do better. I promise." As the weeks passed, Sarah pushed herself harder. She woke up earlier, stayed at work later, and brought tasks home. But it wasn't enough. Michael's school called one day about a fever, and Sarah had to leave an important meeting to pick him up. When she returned the next day, Mr. Harrington was waiting. "Sarah, this can't keep happening," he said, his frustration evident. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but she blinked them back. "Mr. Harrington, I know I've been struggling, but I'm doing my best. Michael is my priority, but this job is important to me too. I'm not giving up on either." Something in her voice made Mr. Harrington pause. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, the determination in her gaze, and the stack of completed reports on her desk. "You finished the Johnson account?" he asked, surprised. Sarah nodded. "Last night after Michael went to bed, I know how important it is." Mr. Harrington's expression softened slightly. "I see. Well, keep up the good work, Sarah. And if you need to adjust your schedule to accommodate your son, let's discuss some options." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that." As Mr. Harrington walked away, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't going to be easy, but she was determined to make it work. For Michael, for her career, and for herself. As Michael entered his teenage years, he discovered a newfound passion that would shape his future. It all started one day at school when his class visited the computer lab. Michael's eyes lit up as he watched the screens come to life, filled with endless possibilities. "Mom, it was amazing," Michael exclaimed as he burst through the front door that afternoon. "We got to use computers at school today. I even made a little game." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "That's wonderful, honey. Tell me all about it." Michael's enthusiasm was contagious as he described every detail of his day. Sarah listened intently, recognizing the spark of true passion in her son's eyes. From that day forward, Michael's interest in technology only grew. He spent hours at the library, poring over books about coding and computer science. Sarah watched with joy as her son's natural curiosity blossomed into a genuine talent. Determined to nurture Michael's newfound interest, Sarah started setting aside a little money each month. It wasn't easy with their tight budget, but she was committed to supporting her son's dreams. "Michael," Sarah called one evening, "can you come here for a moment?" Michael appeared in the living room, his eyebrows raised in question. Sarah couldn't contain her excitement as she handed him a small envelope. "What's this?" Michael asked, puzzled. "Open it and see," Sarah replied, her eyes twinkling. Michael carefully opened the envelope and pulled out a piece of paper. His eyes widened as he read the words, "IOU, one personal computer." "Really?" Michael gasped, his voice filled with disbelief and joy. "We're getting a computer?" Sarah nodded, tears of happiness forming in her eyes. "I've been saving up. It's not much, but it's a start. We can pick one out together this weekend." Michael threw his arms around his mother, hugging her tightly. "Thank you, Mom. This means everything to me." With his very own computer, Michael's skills flourished. He spent countless hours learning to code, creating simple programs, and even designing basic websites. Sarah often found him hunched over the keyboard late into the night, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. "Look, Mom," Michael called out one day, beckoning Sarah to come see his latest creation. "I made a program that can solve math equations." Sarah leaned in, watching in amazement as Michael demonstrated his work. She might not have understood all the technical details, but she recognized the brilliance and dedication behind it. "That's incredible, Michael," Sarah said, her voice filled with pride. "You have a real gift for this." As the years passed, Sarah noticed subtle changes in her body. At first, she dismissed them as signs of aging, but a nagging worry grew in the back of her mind. She found herself feeling more tired than usual, and there was a persistent ache in her chest that she couldn't ignore. One morning, as Sarah stood in front of the bathroom mirror, she felt a small lump beneath her skin. Her heart raced as she realized the implications. With trembling hands, she made an appointment with her doctor. The next few weeks were a blur of medical tests and anxious waiting. Sarah tried to maintain a brave face for Michael, who was now in his senior year of high school. She didn't want to worry him, especially when he was so close to graduation and had college applications to focus on. And finally, the day came for Sarah to meet with her doctor and receive the results. As she sat in the sterile office, her fingers twisted nervously in her lap. "I'm sorry, Sarah," the doctor said, his voice gentle but firm. "The tests show that you have stage 3 breast cancer." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She felt the air leave her lungs as the reality of the diagnosis sank in. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back, determined to stay strong. What are my options?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The doctor explained the treatment plan, outlining a grueling schedule of chemotherapy and radiation. Sarah listened intently, her mind racing with thoughts of Michael and how this would affect him. As she left the doctor's office, Sarah made a decision. She would face this battle head-on, just as she had faced every other challenge in her life. But she would do it quietly, shielding Michael from the worst of it. That evening, as Michael excitedly shared his latest coding project, Sarah smiled and listened attentively. She pushed aside her fears and focused on her son's bright future. "I'm so proud of you, Michael," Sarah said, her voice filled with love and determination. "You're going to do amazing things." Michael's high school years were marked by a series of remarkable achievements. His natural aptitude for technology, nurtured by Sarah's unwavering support, blossomed into exceptional talent. He consistently earned top grades in his classes, particularly excelling in math and computer science. As a sophomore, Michael joined the school's robotics club. His innovative ideas and problem-solving skills quickly set him apart from his peers. During their first competition, Michael's design for a search and rescue robot caught the judges' attention, earning the team a first-place trophy. Word of Michael's abilities spread beyond the school walls. Local tech enthusiasts began to take notice of the brilliant young mind in their midst. One day, after a particularly impressive showing at a regional science fair, a man approached Michael with a warm smile. "That was quite a presentation, young man," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Dr. Thompson from the university's computer science department. I'd love to hear more about your ideas." Michael's eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? That would be amazing, sir." Dr. Thompson became a mentor to Michael, offering guidance and resources to help him explore his passion further. He introduced Michael to other professionals in the field, opening doors that the young man had only dreamed of. Sarah watched with pride as her son's world expanded. Despite her health challenges, she made sure to attend every competition and presentation, beaming from the sidelines as Michael showcased his latest projects. In his senior year, Michael developed a mobile app designed to connect local food banks with people in need. The app's success caught the attention of a prominent tech magazine, which featured Michael in an article about young innovators making a difference in their communities. As college application season approached, Michael found himself with a wealth of opportunities. Scholarships offers began to pour in, and prestigious universities expressed interest in having him join their programs. Through it all, Michael remained grounded, never forgetting the love and sacrifices that had brought him to this point. Each night, he would share his latest achievements with Sarah, his eyes shining with gratitude and determination. Sarah's health took a turn for the worse. The cancer treatments that had once seemed promising now left her exhausted and weak. She could no longer hide the toll it was taking on her body. With a heavy heart, she realized she needed to take medical leave from work. One evening, as Michael came home from school, he found Sarah sitting on the couch, her face pale and drawn. She patted the seat next to her, inviting him to sit down. "Michael, honey," she said softly, "we need to talk." Michael's heart raced as he sat beside her. He had sensed something was wrong for a while now, but nothing could have prepared him for what came next. Sarah took a deep breath and explained her condition. Tears welled up in Michael's eyes as he listened, but he fought to stay strong for her. "Mom," he said, his voice trembling, "why didn't you tell me sooner?" Sarah cupped his face in her hands. "I didn't want to worry you, sweetheart. You have so much potential, and I didn't want anything to hold you back." From that moment on, Michael's world shifted. He knew he had to step up and help at home. He began taking on more household chores, cooking meals, and even learning how to manage their bills. Despite the added responsibilities, Michael was determined not to let his grades slip or abandon his tech projects. He created a strict schedule for himself, dividing his time between schoolwork, his app development, and caring for Sarah. Some nights, Michael would sit at his desk working on his latest coding project while Sarah rested nearby. He'd often glance over at her, feeling a mix of love and worry. "How's it going, genius?" Sarah would ask, her voice weak but her smile still bright. "It's coming along, Mom," Michael would reply, his determination growing stronger with each passing day. "I'm not giving up on my dreams, just like you never gave up on me." As Michael poured his heart and soul into his latest tech project, he never imagined it would change everything. The regional tech competition was just around the corner, and he worked tirelessly on his community-focused app. It was designed to connect local volunteers with people in need, inspired by the kindness his mom had shown him all these years. The day of the competition arrived, and Michael's nerves were on edge. Sarah, despite her weakened state, insisted on being there to support him. They arrived at the convention center, where dozens of young innovators showcased their projects. When it was Michael's turn to present, he took a deep breath and looked at Sarah. She nodded encouragingly, and he began his demonstration with newfound confidence. "My app, Helping Hands, brings our community together," Michael explained, his voice steady and clear. "It allows people to post requests for help, whether it's mowing a lawn or getting groceries. Volunteers can then sign up to assist." The judges listened intently, impressed by the app's simplicity and potential impact. As Michael finished his presentation, a warm applause filled the room. Hours later, the winners were announced. Michael's heart raced as he heard his name called for first place. Tears of joy streamed down his face as he accepted the award, his eyes immediately searching for Sarah in the crowd. Sarah beamed with pride, her own eyes glistening. As Michael made his way back to her, whispers rippled through the audience. People who had once looked at them with suspicion now watched in awe. The local newspaper covered Michael's victory, praising his innovative spirit and commitment to community. Suddenly, their small town was in the spotlight for all the right reasons. In the days that followed, Michael and Sarah noticed a shift in how people treated them. Neighbors who had once avoided eye contact now smiled and waved. At the grocery store, strangers approached them to offer congratulations. Even at school, Michael found himself surrounded by classmates eager to learn more about his app. Teachers who had once been indifferent now spoke of him as an example of what hard work and determination could achieve. As Sarah watched these changes unfold, she felt a warmth in her heart. The love and acceptance she had always wanted for Michael were finally becoming a reality. Their journey had been long and difficult, but in that moment she knew it had all been worth it. Sarah's health took an unexpected turn for the better. The aggressive cancer treatments, combined with her unwavering spirit, began to show positive results. Her oncologist was cautiously optimistic, noting that while she wasn't out of the woods yet, her condition had stabilized significantly. As Sarah regained some of her strength, she found herself more able to engage with Michael's tech projects. She marveled at his growth and the innovative ideas that seemed to flow endlessly from his mind. Despite her limited understanding of technology, Sarah was determined to support and contribute to Michael's passion in any way she could. One evening, as they sat at the kitchen table surrounded by Michael's notebooks and Sarah's steaming mugs of herbal tea, an idea began to take shape. Michael had been sharing his thoughts on expanding his award-winning app when Sarah's eyes lit up with inspiration. "What if we didn't stop at just an app?" Sarah suggested, her voice filled with excitement. "What if we created a whole company dedicated to using technology to help our community?" Michael's eyes widened at the possibility. "Mom, that's brilliant! We could develop all sorts of solutions to address local issues." They spent hours brainstorming, their enthusiasm growing with each passing minute. Sarah grabbed a large sheet of paper and began jotting down ideas as Michael spoke animatedly about potential projects. "We could create a platform to connect local farmers with consumers," Michael suggested. "It would help support our agricultural community and provide fresh, affordable produce to families in need." Sarah nodded eagerly, adding it to their growing list. "And what about an app to coordinate carpooling for seniors who need rides to medical appointments?" As they continued to bounce ideas off each other, the concept of their company began to take shape. They envisioned a business that would not only provide innovative tech solutions, but also create jobs and opportunities for their small town. With their vision clear, Michael and Sarah set out to turn their dream into reality. They started by researching the current state of internet access and digital education in their town. What they found was eye-opening. Many families couldn't afford reliable internet, and local schools lacked the resources to provide comprehensive tech education. Michael's technical expertise came to the forefront as he began designing a low-cost wireless network that could reach even the most remote areas of their community. He spent hours hunched over his computer, creating detailed plans and running simulations to ensure maximum coverage. Sarah, drawing on her years of experience as a mother and community advocate, focused on developing educational programs. She reached out to local teachers and tech professionals, gathering input on what skills were most needed in the digital age. "We need to make sure no one gets left behind," Sarah said one evening as they reviewed their progress. Every child should have the chance to learn and grow in this digital world. Michael nodded in agreement. And it's not just about access, he added. We need to teach people how to use these tools effectively and safely. Together, they crafted a curriculum that covered everything from basic computer skills to advanced coding concepts. They planned workshops for all age groups, determined to bridge the generational gap in tech literacy. As word of their project spread, support began to trickle in from unexpected places. The local library offered space for their educational programs, and a retired IT professional volunteered to help with the network infrastructure. Sarah and Michael's dining room table became their makeshift office, covered in laptops, notepads, and mugs of coffee. They worked tirelessly, fueled by their shared passion for making a difference. One afternoon, as they were finalizing the details of their first community workshop, Sarah looked at Michael with pride shining in her eyes. "You know," she said softly, "when I adopted you all those years ago, I never imagined we'd be doing something like this together, but I always knew you were destined for great things." Michael reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "We're doing this together, Mom. Your love and support made all of this possible." With renewed determination, they turned back to their work, ready to take the next steps in bringing their vision to life. As Michael and Sarah began to transform their vision into reality, they quickly encountered their first major obstacle: funding. Their innovative ideas for affordable internet access and educational programs required significant capital to implement, and finding investors proved to be a daunting task. They started by approaching local businesses and community leaders, armed with detailed presentations and passion in their hearts. However, many were skeptical of the young man and his ailing mother's ability to pull off such an ambitious project. "I'm sorry, but it's just too risky," one potential investor said, shaking his head. "You don't have the experience or the track record to make this work." Sarah squeezed Michael's hand as they left yet another disappointing meeting. "Don't worry, honey. We'll find a way," she reassured him, despite the worry lines creasing her forehead. Undeterred, Michael and Sarah continued to refine their pitch and seek out new opportunities. They attended local business networking events, where Michael's technical knowledge and Sarah's warmth and determination began to catch people's attention. Slowly but surely, their persistence started to pay off. A small group of forward-thinking individuals in the community began to take notice of their efforts. Among them was Mr. Thompson, the owner of a local electronics store who had watched Michael grow up. "You know, I've always been impressed by that boy's smarts," Mr. Thompson said to his wife one evening. "And Sarah's dedication to this town is something special. Maybe it's time we gave them a chance." The next day, Mr. Thompson approached Michael and Sarah with an offer to invest a modest sum in their company. It wasn't enough to fully fund their project, but it was a start, and more importantly, it was a vote of confidence. This initial investment acted as a catalyst. Word spread about the local widow and her adopted son, who were trying to bridge the digital divide in their community. More supporters began to emerge, offering not just financial backing but also their time and expertise. With their initial funding secured, Michael and Sarah worked tirelessly to bring their vision to life. Long nights were spent hunched over computers, fine-tuning their plans and ironing out technical details. Sarah, despite her ongoing health struggles, remained a constant source of support and encouragement for Michael. Finally, after months of preparation, the day arrived for the launch of their first project. The goal was simple, yet impactful: provide free internet access to underprivileged families in their community. On a crisp Saturday morning, Michael and Sarah, along with a small team of volunteers, set up their equipment in the community center. Families began to trickle in, curious about the promise of free internet access. As Michael explained the project to the gathered crowd, Sarah watched with pride, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She saw the boy she had raised transform into a confident young man, ready to make a real difference in the world. "We believe that access to information should be a right, not a privilege," Michael said, his voice steady and passionate. "Today we're taking the first step towards bridging the digital divide in our community." One by one, families signed up for the service. Children's eyes lit up at the prospect of being able to do their homework online, while parents expressed gratitude for the opportunity to search for jobs and access important resources. Word of the project spread quickly. Local news stations arrived to cover the story, interviewing Michael and Sarah about their innovative approach to community development. The positive feedback was overwhelming. "This is exactly what our town needed," said Mrs. Rodriguez, a single mother of 3. "Now my kids can keep up with their schoolwork, and I can take online classes to improve my job prospects. It's like a whole new world has opened up for us." As the day wore on, the impact of their work became increasingly evident. Families left the community center with smiles on their faces and hope in their hearts. Michael and Sarah's dream of using technology to uplift their community was becoming a reality. As word of Michael's successful internet access project spread, the young entrepreneur's reputation in the town began to shift. People who had once viewed him with suspicion or indifference now spoke of him with admiration and respect. His company's success opened doors to new opportunities, and Michael was eager to make an even bigger impact. With Sarah's encouragement, Michael decided to expand the company's initiatives. He recognized that providing internet access was just the first step. Many young people in the community lacked the skills needed to take full advantage of this new resource. So he developed a plan for job training programs focused on technology and digital literacy. The company set up a small training center in a previously abandoned storefront downtown. They offered free classes on basic computer skills, coding, and digital marketing. At first, only a handful of people showed up, but as success stories began to circulate, more and more young people signed up. One of the first participants was Jamal, a high school dropout who had struggled to find steady work. After completing the program, Jamal landed a job at a local tech company. His success story inspired others in the community to give the program a chance. Sarah, despite her ongoing health challenges, insisted on teaching some of the classes herself. Her patience and kindness made her a favorite among the students, many of whom had never had a teacher who believed in them before. As the months passed, the impact of Michael's work became impossible to ignore. Local businesses reported an increase in qualified job applicants. The high school saw a rise in students pursuing further education in technology fields. Even the town's economy showed signs of improvement as new opportunities opened up. The town's perception of Michael underwent a dramatic shift. People who had once whispered behind his back now approached him on the street to shake his hand and thank him for his contributions to the community. The same neighbors who had initially rejected Sarah's decision to adopt him now pointed to Michael as an example of what their town could achieve. Sarah's health took a sudden turn for the worse. One morning, she collapsed in the kitchen, her body racked with pain. Michael rushed her to the hospital, his heart pounding with fear. The doctors ran tests and delivered the devastating news. Sarah's cancer had spread and her condition was critical. As Sarah lay in the hospital bed, pale and weak, Michael felt his world crumbling around him. He held her hand tightly, trying to be strong for her. "Mom, you're going to be okay," he whispered, his voice trembling. "We've been through this before, we'll get through it again." Sarah smiled weakly, her eyes filled with love and concern. "Michael, my sweet boy," she said softly. "You've grown into such an amazing man. I'm so proud of you." Michael's eyes welled up with tears. The thought of losing Sarah, the woman who had given him everything, was unbearable. He spent every moment he could at her bedside, reading to her, sharing stories about the company's progress, and simply holding her hand. But as Sarah's condition worsened, Michael found himself torn between his desire to be with her and his responsibilities to the company they had built together. He knew that Sarah would want him to keep their dream alive, to continue helping their community. So, with a heavy heart, he divided his time between the hospital and the office. At work, Michael threw himself into expanding the company's reach. He pushed forward with plans to bring their job training programs to neighboring towns, hoping to create a wider network of opportunities for young people. But his mind was never far from Sarah's hospital room. Late one night, as Michael pored over spreadsheets and project proposals, his phone rang. It was the hospital. Sarah had taken a turn for the worse. Michael's hand shook as he grabbed his keys and rushed out the door, praying he would make it in time. Michael's heart raced as he entered the hospital room, relief washing over him when he saw Sarah awake and alert. Her condition had stabilized, and though she was still weak, there was a spark of life in her eyes that had been missing for weeks. "Mom," Michael said softly, taking her hand, "I have some amazing news." Sarah squeezed his hand gently, her smile warm and encouraging. "Tell me, sweetheart." Michael took a deep breath, his eyes shining with excitement. "The Bright Man Foundation heard about our work. They want to fund our project statewide. We're going to be able to help so many more people, Mom." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she listened to Michael explain the details of the funding. The philanthropic organization had been impressed by the impact of their local initiatives and saw the potential for even greater change on a larger scale. "Oh, Michael," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with pride. "You've done it. You're making such a difference in people's lives." As the days passed, Sarah's condition continued to improve. She was moved out of intensive care and into a regular room. Michael split his time between the hospital and the office, working tirelessly to put the new funding to good use. One sunny afternoon, Michael wheeled Sarah out to the hospital garden. The fresh air and warm sunlight seemed to breathe new life into her. As they sat together, surrounded by blooming flowers, Michael shared the latest developments with the company. "We're setting up training centers in 5 new cities," he explained, his eyes alight with passion. "And we're partnering with local schools to provide free internet access and computer classes for students." Sarah listened intently, her heart swelling with pride and joy. She watched Michael's animated gestures and heard the excitement in his voice, marveling at the man he had become. This was the dream they had nurtured together, coming to life before her eyes. "You know, Mom," Michael said, his voice softening, "none of this would have been possible without you. Your love, your support. You gave me everything." Sarah reached out and cupped Michael's cheek, her eyes glistening with tears. "And you, my darling boy, have given me more than I could have ever imagined. You've made all my sacrifices worth it." As Michael's company expanded its reach across the state, they introduced a groundbreaking program aimed at providing tech education to underprivileged schools. The initiative, called Tech for All, quickly gained traction, bringing state-of-the-art equipment and expert instructors to classrooms that had long been overlooked. Sarah, now recovering at home, watched with pride as Michael poured his heart and soul into the program. She could see the same passion in his eyes that she had nurtured since he was a child. "Mom, you won't believe the impact we're making," Michael said one evening, his voice filled with excitement. "Kids who've never even touched a computer before are now coding their own games." Sarah smiled warmly, her eyes twinkling. "I always knew you'd change the world, sweetheart." As the months passed, word of Tech for All's success spread like wildfire. Schools reported improved attendance rates, higher test scores, and a surge in student interest in STEM fields. Local news stations began featuring stories about young lives transformed by the program. Michael's inbox soon filled with messages from educators, parents, and students, all sharing stories of how Tech for All had opened doors they never thought possible. One day, as he read through the latest batch of emails, his phone rang. "Hello, is this Michael Thompson?" a crisp voice asked. "Yes, this is he," Michael replied, curious. "Mr. Thompson, I'm calling from the National Tech Innovation Conference. We've been following your work with great interest, and we'd like to invite you to be a keynote speaker at our upcoming event." Michael's heart skipped a beat. The National Tech Innovation Conference was one of the most prestigious gatherings in the industry. Being invited to speak there was a dream come true. I'd be honored," Michael stammered, trying to contain his excitement. As he hung up the phone, Michael rushed to share the news with Sarah. He found her in the garden, tending to her flowers. "Mom," he called out, his face beaming. "You'll never guess what just happened." Sarah looked up, her eyes questioning. Michael told her about the invitation, his words tumbling out in a rush of joy and disbelief. Sarah's health took a sudden turn for the worse. The cancer that had been held at bay for so long returned with a vengeance, leaving her weak and bedridden. Michael's world seemed to crumble around him as he watched his beloved mother struggle. "Michael," Sarah whispered one afternoon, her voice barely audible, "promise me you'll keep changing the world." Michael squeezed her hand gently, tears welling in his eyes. "I promise, Mom. I'll make you proud." As Sarah's condition deteriorated, Michael found himself torn between his growing company and his desire to be by her side every moment. He spent sleepless nights at the hospital, his laptop open as he worked on new ideas, determined to keep his promise. One night, as he watched the nurses tend to his mother, an idea struck him. What if he could use technology to improve healthcare for patients like Sarah? The thought consumed him, and he began to sketch out plans for a new project. In the following weeks, as Sarah's strength ebbed, Michael poured his heart and soul into developing a healthcare technology initiative. He envisioned a system that would connect patients with round-the-clock care, provide real-time monitoring, and offer support for both patients and their families. Michael named the project Sarah's Hope, in honor of the woman who had given him everything. He worked tirelessly, fueled by a mix of grief, love, and determination. His team rallied around him, inspired by his unwavering commitment. As Sarah's hope began to take shape, Michael spent every spare moment by his mother's bedside, sharing his progress and dreams for the future. Sarah listened with pride, her eyes shining with love even as her body grew weaker. "You've always been my greatest gift, Michael," Sarah murmured one evening, her voice faint but filled with emotion. "I'm so proud of the man you've become." Michael held her hand tightly, his heart breaking. He knew their time together was growing short, but he was determined to make every moment count. As news of Sarah's condition spread through the town, a remarkable change began to take place. The community that had once been skeptical of Sarah's decision to adopt Michael now rallied around them, offering support and kindness. Inspired by Michael's achievements and Sarah's unwavering love, the town council called an emergency meeting. They decided it was time to address the long-standing issues of prejudice and exclusion that had plagued their community for years. Mayor Thompson, who had once been one of Sarah's harshest critics, stood before the packed town hall. "We've witnessed something extraordinary in our midst," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Michael and Sarah have shown us the power of love and acceptance. It's time we follow their example." The council proposed a series of initiatives to promote diversity and inclusion. They started with the schools, introducing programs that celebrated different cultures and backgrounds. The library began hosting weekly story times featuring books about diversity and acceptance. Local businesses joined in, pledging to create more inclusive hiring practices. The community center launched workshops on understanding and appreciating differences, with Michael often invited as a guest speaker. As these changes took root, Michael's story spread beyond the town's borders. News outlets picked up on the tale of the young black man adopted by a white single mother, who went on to create a successful tech company dedicated to helping others. Michael found himself fielding interview requests from major networks and publications. In one particularly moving television interview, Michael spoke about Sarah's impact on his life. "My mom taught me that love knows no boundaries," he said, his eyes glistening. "She showed me that one person's courage can change not just a life but an entire community." The story resonated with people across the country. Letters and emails poured in, many from adoptive families or those considering adoption. Michael's journey became a beacon of hope, proving that love could indeed change lives. Back in their hometown, the impact was even more profound. Families who had once shunned Sarah and Michael now approached them with apologies and offers of friendship. The annual town fair, once a source of tension, became a celebration of the town's newfound commitment to inclusivity. Sarah's health had been declining steadily, and despite the best efforts of her doctors, it became clear that her time was running short. Michael spent every moment he could by her side, holding her hand and reminiscing about their life together. On a quiet autumn evening, Sarah took her last breath, surrounded by Michael and a few close friends who had become like family over the years. The room was filled with a profound sense of love and gratitude for the remarkable woman who had touched so many lives. In the days that followed, Michael found solace in continuing the work he and Sarah had started together. He threw himself into expanding their company's reach, determined to honor his mother's legacy by helping even more people. The day of Sarah's funeral arrived, and the church was packed with people from all walks of life. Michael stood at the podium, his eyes scanning the sea of faces before him. Taking a deep breath, he began his eulogy. "My mom, Sarah, was the bravest person I've ever known," Michael said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. "She chose love when others chose fear. She saw potential where others saw problems, and she never ever gave up on me or on our dreams." He paused, swallowing hard before continuing. "When I was just a baby, she took me into her heart and her home, not caring what anyone else thought. She fought for me, believed in me, and showed me what unconditional love truly means." Michael went on to share stories of Sarah's unwavering support throughout his life, from standing up to bullies in elementary school to cheering him on at tech competitions. He spoke of her courage in the face of illness and her dedication to their shared vision of using technology to uplift their community. "Even in her final days," Michael said, his voice breaking slightly, "Mom was more concerned about the future of our company and the people we help than about herself. She made me promise to keep going, to keep growing, to keep making a difference." Michael stood before a crowd of eager faces, his heart swelling with pride and a touch of sadness. It had been 6 months since Sarah's passing, and he was about to launch something that would have made her incredibly proud. "Today," he began, his voice steady and clear, "we're not just launching a scholarship fund. We're continuing a legacy of love, hope, and opportunity that my mom, Sarah, started when she chose to adopt me all those years ago." The audience listened intently as Michael explained the Sarah Johnson Memorial Scholarship Fund. It would provide full rides to college for young tech enthusiasts from underprivileged backgrounds, giving them the chance to pursue their dreams just as Sarah had done for Michael. "My mom believed that everyone deserves a chance to shine," Michael continued, his eyes glistening. "She saw potential in a little orphan boy when others didn't. Now, we're going to do the same for other kids who just need someone to believe in them." As he spoke, images of Sarah flashed on the screen behind him. Sarah reading to a young Michael, cheering him on at his first coding competition, and standing proudly beside him at the launch of their company. The audience was visibly moved, many wiping away tears. Michael introduced the first group of scholarship recipients, 5 bright-eyed teenagers from various backgrounds, each with a passion for technology and a dream of making a difference. As they joined him on stage, the crowd erupted in applause. One of the recipients, a young girl named Amelia, stepped up to the microphone. "I never thought I'd have a chance to go to college," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "My family couldn't afford it, and I was ready to give up on my dreams. But now, thanks to Ms. Sarah and Michael, I can become the software engineer I've always wanted to be." The impact of the scholarship fund was immediate and far-reaching. Local news stations picked up the story, spreading the word about this new opportunity for underprivileged youth. Soon, applications were pouring in from all over the state. Michael's reputation as a successful tech entrepreneur with a heart for social change continued to grow. He found himself invited to speak at more and more industry events, sharing his unique journey and the lessons he'd learned along the way. At a major tech conference in Silicon Valley, Michael took the stage, his presence commanding yet humble. He shared his story, from being adopted by Sarah to founding a company that was changing lives in his community. "Technology has the power to bridge gaps and create opportunities," Michael said, his voice resonating through the packed auditorium. "But we need to ensure that everyone has access to these opportunities, regardless of their background or circumstances." His words struck a chord with many in the audience. After his speech, a group of influential tech leaders approached him, eager to learn more about his inclusive practices. Over coffee, Michael explained his company's initiatives. "We actively seek out talent from underrepresented communities," he said. "We offer internships to high school students from low-income areas, providing them with mentorship and real-world experience." One CEO, impressed by Michael's approach, asked, "How can we implement something similar in our company?" Michael's eyes lit up. He began outlining steps they could take, from partnering with local schools to creating scholarship programs similar to the one he had established in Sarah's memory. As word spread about Michael's innovative approaches, more tech companies began reaching out to him for advice. He found himself in boardrooms and strategy meetings, advocating for change and helping to shape new policies. One afternoon, Michael sat in a meeting with the diversity and inclusion team of a major tech giant. "It's not just about hiring diverse talent," he explained. "It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued and has the opportunity to thrive." The team listened intently, taking notes and asking questions. By the end of the meeting, they had drafted a plan to overhaul their recruitment and retention strategies, with Michael's guidance. As he left the building, Michael felt a sense of hope. He knew that change wouldn't happen overnight, but he could see the ripples of his influence spreading. More and more companies were starting to understand the importance of inclusivity, not just as a moral imperative, but as a way to drive innovation and success. Michael's company, now a beacon of hope and innovation, caught the attention of several national organizations dedicated to social change. Recognizing the potential to make an even greater impact, Michael eagerly pursued these partnerships. One sunny morning, Michael sat in his office surrounded by blueprints and project proposals. His phone rang, and on the other end was the director of a prominent national education foundation. "Mr. Johnson," the director said, her voice filled with excitement. "We've been following your work, and we're impressed. We'd like to partner with you to expand your educational technology programs nationwide." Michael's heart swelled with joy. "That would be incredible," he replied, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Let's set up a meeting to discuss the details." Over the next few months, Michael worked tirelessly to forge partnerships with various national organizations. His company's programs began to spread across the country, bringing technology education and internet access to underserved communities from coast to coast. As news of these expansions reached his hometown, the community swelled with pride. The mayor, once skeptical of Michael's adoption, now stood as one of his biggest supporters. She approached the town council with an idea to honor Michael's achievements. On a crisp autumn day, the town square was bustling with activity. Colorful banners hung from lampposts, and a stage had been set up in front of the old courthouse. People from all walks of life gathered, their faces beaming with excitement. Michael arrived, surprised by the turnout. The mayor greeted him with a warm handshake and led him to the stage. As he looked out at the sea of familiar faces, Michael felt a lump form in his throat. These were the same people who had once viewed him with suspicion, and now they were here to celebrate him. The mayor stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice ringing out across the square, "we are gathered here today to honor one of our own. Michael Johnson has not only brought pride to our town, but has shown the world what can be achieved through love, determination, and a commitment to helping others." As the crowd erupted in applause, Michael's thoughts turned to Sarah. He wished she could be there to see this moment, to know that her love and sacrifice had led to something so beautiful and impactful. As Michael stood on the stage listening to the mayor's heartfelt words, he felt a wave of emotion wash over him. His mind drifted back to the beginning of his journey, to the day Sarah had chosen him at the adoption fair. He could still remember the warmth of her embrace, the love in her eyes as she held him close. Memories flooded his thoughts, Sarah reading him bedtime stories, encouraging his love for technology, and standing up for him in the face of prejudice. He recalled the countless nights she had stayed up late, helping him with his projects and cheering him on at every competition. Michael's eyes welled up with tears as he thought about Sarah's unwavering support, even during her toughest battles with cancer. She had always put his needs first, making sure he had every opportunity to succeed. Sarah's love, Michael thought, was the foundation of everything I've achieved. As the mayor invited him to speak, Michael approached the microphone with a lump in his throat. He looked out at the crowd, seeing faces that had once been unfriendly, but were now filled with admiration and respect. "Thank you all," Michael began, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm honored by this recognition, but I wouldn't be here without the love and support of one incredible woman, my mother, Sarah." He paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "Sarah taught me that love knows no boundaries. She showed me that with determination and compassion, we can change hearts and minds. Everything I've accomplished, every life we've touched through our work is because of the foundation she built." Michael's voice grew stronger as he continued. "Sarah's legacy lives on in every program we create, in every child we educate, and in every community we connect. I vow to continue her work, to spread love and opportunity just as she did for me." As he spoke, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that his success wasn't just about technological innovations or business achievements. It was about carrying forward the spirit of love and acceptance that Sarah had instilled in him. As Michael's company continued to flourish, its impact on the community grew exponentially. The once divided town began to transform into a beacon of unity and progress, all thanks to the vision that Sarah had instilled in her son. The company's latest initiative focused on bringing cutting-edge technology to local schools. Michael worked tirelessly to ensure that every child, regardless of their background, had access to the tools they needed to succeed in the digital age. One crisp autumn morning, Michael visited Jefferson Elementary, the school where he had once faced bullying and discrimination. As he walked through the hallways, he couldn't help but marvel at the changes. Classrooms buzzed with excitement as students of all races and backgrounds worked together on sleek tablets and computers. Mrs. Thompson, his old kindergarten teacher, now nearing retirement, greeted him with a warm smile. "Michael," she said, her eyes glistening with pride, "I can't tell you how much your work has meant to this school. These children have opportunities we never dreamed possible when you were a student here." Michael's heart swelled with emotion as he watched a group of children huddled around a 3D printer, their faces alight with wonder as they created intricate designs. He thought of Sarah and how she would have loved to see this moment. The company's influence extended beyond education. Their job training programs had revitalized the local economy, bringing new businesses to the area and creating a sense of hope that had been missing for years. Families that had once struggled to make ends meet were now thriving, their lives transformed by the opportunities Michael's company had provided. As he walked down Main Street, Michael noticed how different the atmosphere felt. The once suspicious glances and whispered comments had been replaced by friendly waves and warm greetings. The town that had once rejected him now embraced him as one of their own. At the community center, a mural caught Michael's eye. It depicted a diverse group of people working together, with Sarah's smiling face watching over them. The inscription read, "Love knows no boundaries, in memory of Sarah who taught us all." Michael stood there for a moment, overwhelmed by the realization of how far they had come. The spirit of love and acceptance that Sarah had nurtured had taken root and blossomed, transforming not just his life but the entire community. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the town square, Michael made his way through the bustling crowd at the annual community celebration. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the tantalizing aroma of food from local vendors. Colorful banners fluttered in the gentle breeze, proclaiming "Unity in diversity" and "Technology for all." Michael paused for a moment, taking in the scene before him. Children of all backgrounds played together on the new playground equipment his company had donated. Elderly couples sat on benches, chatting with young families. It was a far cry from the divided town he had grown up in. As he approached the stage, familiar faces turned to greet him with warm smiles and nods of appreciation. Mayor Johnson, once one of his staunchest critics, now beamed with pride as he introduced Michael to the gathered crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor's voice boomed through the speakers, "please join me in honoring a man who has transformed our community. Michael, would you please come up here?" The crowd erupted in applause as Michael climbed the steps to the stage. He looked out at the sea of faces, recognizing so many people whose lives had been touched by his work. His heart swelled with emotion as he thought of Sarah and how proud she would have been of this moment. Mayor Johnson presented Michael with a plaque reading, "In recognition of outstanding contributions to our community and unwavering dedication to equality and progress." As Michael accepted the award, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment wash over him. The years of hard work, the challenges he had faced, and the love that had guided him all culminated in this moment. He realized that Sarah's love had not only changed his life but had rippled out to touch countless others. Looking out at the crowd, Michael saw the legacy of Sarah's love in every face. It was in the children excitedly discussing their latest tech projects, in the adults who had found new purpose through his job training programs, and in the elderly who now connected with far-off family members thanks to his internet initiatives. A sense of peace settled over Michael as he stood there holding the plaque. He knew that Sarah's love would continue to shape the community for generations to come, a testament to the power of unconditional love and acceptance. Is it worth standing up to a community's prejudice for your beliefs like Sarah did by adopting Michael? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my channel. I am spending hours upon hours writing these heartwarming stories for you, and your support is what keeps me going.